Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today on this beautiful Independence Day for all my American brothers and sisters to the south of me. I hope you're all having a wonderful day, had a wonderful weekend. And if you got a government job and you've got the whole week off, I hope you're enjoying it as well. Um, so thank you so much, everyone, for hanging out with me in the chat right now. We're just going to talk about some new dealings that are going on with regards to the strike in Hollywood today. For when it comes to the WGA, we have crossed the 60-day mark. We're now at day 64, which means that for some of the studios, they are going to be figuring out if they're going to be taking up their force majeure aspects to their contracts, if they're going to terminate them or merely delay. The option is now available for a majority of contracts there, and then even more will open up if this strike continues on for an additional 26 days. That makes it the 90-day mark. And I have a pretty strong inclination that might be the case. When it comes to the actors side of things, the Screen Actors Guild, just before the holidays, have negotiated an extension. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. In fact, I'll bring it up right now when it comes to deadline here. So let's see. Bear with me. I'm not good at this. There we go. Let's try it that way. Okay. All right. So this was posted on June 30th by Deadline, and it's about the SAG-AFTRA and AMPTP agreement to extend contracts to July 12th as negotiations continue. Now, this is not necessarily out of the norm. This extension was done also, if my memory is accurate, during the 2007-2008 strike as well. And basically, it's just something that the actors kind of do all the time. They get pretty close to a deal, but it's usually right up into the wire, and they, like actors, they need 5 more minutes when you're trying to get them out from the trailer to the set. So we'll go over some of the bullet points here. Now, sadly, I wish I had access to their demands. Some of them have been posted, not all of them have. They're behind basically the union wall, is my understanding, and there's also media blackout on the SAG side of things, not ACTRA. Sorry, it's my Canadianisms coming in there. On the SAG side of things, so I don't know all the details of what it is there, but I have asked some of my actor friends who are unionized, and basically the gist of it is better self-taping, better audition process, not being more control over their images for licensing purposes, whether it comes to computer generated likenesses or AI, all those types of stuff. Those are the broad aspects. I wish I had the details of the other things, because that would have been great to go through and discuss. But for now, this is all we've got. But hopefully, and I'm really pulling for my actor brethren there, that they don't have to go on strike, that they do get a good deal, because then that allows the WGA to return to the negotiating table and hash out a deal that could be ideally beneficial, more beneficial than the counters and lack of counters that the AMPT provided. So I'm crossing my fingers for you guys that you get a good deal, that you sign it, it gets ratified, and you guys can get back to work, and that we eventually soon will be able to get back to work. But I am well aware, actors, if you're listening, that the vast majority of you voted to strike if a deal cannot be met by the deadline, which is now the extended deadline, which we'll get into here with the article. And I just want to say another hi to the chat for John Sapola, who beat me here, and as well as 52 movies a year. Neil, awesome, Neil. I enjoyed our conversation we had just a little over a week ago. We got Charlie, Mike Linux, David Bateleur, Southern Viking, Too Much 77, Darth Gutierrez, and Bad Take Bojan. That's Tina. How are you doing? It's good to see you all here. So let's get into it, folks. So, update with joint statement. SAG-AFTRA and the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers agreed Friday to extend their current film and TV contract until July 12th to allow bargaining on a new deal to continue. Both sides said this evening. The current contract had been set to expire tonight at midnight Pacific time, after which it would have likely meant a second major Hollywood guild would be on the strike against the studios. The agreements, which were set to expire at 11:59 p.m. PT, will now expire on July 12th, 11:59 Pacific time. SAG-AFTRA and the AMPT said in a joint statement. The parties will continue to negotiate under a mutually agreed upon media blackout. Neither organization will comment to the media about the negotiations during the extension. An extension of the SAG-AFTRA contract during tough talks is not unusual. The Guild and the studios did so in 2014 and 2017 before finally reaching deals in early July of those years. The extensions of the existing contract tonight by 10 working days comes amid a looming 4th of July holiday when most of the town typically shutters for a stretch. Most of the town will be shuttered for a stretch, but if you saw WDW Pro's live stream last night, 4th of July celebration, you'll know that a number of people working for Lucasfilm will not be enjoying their vacations and are currently, I would expect on their way back to Burbank to start a series of multiple meetings with regards to the recent box office of Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Moving on. Earlier this week, Deadline reported that an extension was on the table with July 7 as a probable date. An insider said this evening, yeah, they'll probably be talking a bit over the weekend, but they really won't get back to the table until after the holiday. Under that scenario, that gives the side an additional week to try and make a deal, though a deal or a strike could come at any time before the new deadline. The extension comes against the backdrop of an unprecedented grassroots campaign by Guild members to urge the group to stand strong at the bargaining table and to join the WGA on the picket lines if a major realignment in our industry can't be achieved. Earlier this week, more than 1,700 actors, including many prominent SAG-AFTRA members, signed off on a letter to Guild leaders saying they would rather go on strike and join the WGA picket line than compromise on key issues. The ongoing Writers Guild strike is now in its 60th day, well, technically 64 as of today. Last Saturday, SAG-AFTRA President Fran Drescher from The Nanny, if those are unfamiliar, or A Brief Spot in This Is Spinal Tap, great movie, strongly recommend checking it out if you haven't, who also signed the Prepared to Strike letter, and National Executive Director and Chief Negotiator Duncan Crabtree Ireland posted a video in which they told members that the Guild's contract negotiations have been extremely productive, and they remain optimistic that a fair deal can be reached. On Thursday, Drescher told Good Morning America that the contract talks were making headway in some areas, and in some areas were not. On June 5th, SAG-AFTRA members voted 98% in favor of authorizing a strike if contract talks fail to reach an acceptable deal. Prior to the authorization vote, the Guild laid out some of its key bargaining issues, which include economic fairness, residuals, regulating the use of artificial intelligence, and alleviating the burdens of the industry-wide shift to self-taping. With respect to economic fairness, the Guild said that outdated contract terms, coupled with the evolution of the media business, including shorter season orders and longer hiatuses between seasons, make it increasingly difficult for our members to achieve and maintain a middle-class lifestyle working as a performer. In sharp contrast to the diminishing compensation paid for our members, the studios are posting immense profits with a bullish outlook, as demonstrated by lavish corporate executive compensation. So I'm going to pause here for a moment because this is actually really important, because this goes back to the WGA's argument with regards to smaller show orders for seasons on network and streaming. So one of the things that's actually kind of important here is that it doesn't just affect the writers with regards to how much work they're doing in the writer's room. It also affects the actors with how many days they're going to be working on a show. So shorter seasons mean shorter work periods, which means that actors will have a broader downtime between gigs, especially if they're working on a series show that may have a 3-season contract, but it's only 8 episodes and they're being shot within a 6 to 16 or 6 to 18 week period. Because when you're doing something like streaming, usually the bookings of the sets and where people are going to be, actor sets and call dates and stuff, are a bit more closer together to maximize the advantage of shooting the series all at once and then dropping it episode by episode. So, for example, let's say there is a standing set on a Star Trek show, for instance, and they have a whole bunch of actors there on the bridge of whatever starship they're on. And so they will decide, well, since we have all the scripts written and we have all the actors here, we are going to shoot as many of the scenes we can that take place on this bridge that we can do without having to make makeup changes or with the majority of the cast there. So if there's 6 scenes across 3 episodes that take place on the bridge, they will try and shoot those all within a scheduled period to save basically money and time. But it's also a little bit of a strain on the actors because they're also bouncing from different episodes. So they might not always have full orientation of where they are in the scene as they're doing it. But if they're really good and they've been given the full scripts beforehand, they will be able to familiarize themselves between shooting those scenes over that period. But it basically just makes it easier on the scheduling aspect of things because you know where you're going to be going for maybe 3 to 5 days to shoot all your scenes on, say, the bridge of the Enterprise, hypothetically. And then, after that, okay, well, if we're going to go to, like, say, a Planet Hell set, where you have to drive out to the middle of nowhere, or the actual, like, a stage 2 Planet Hell that they had over at Paramount or Desilu back in the day, they would know if they'd be going there and getting that all in their out of the way sort of stuff. And then you'd have your scheduled days where some actors are maybe just working on one scene where it's between 1 to 3 people. And they get those kind of out of the way and they just kind of run through them as quickly as they possibly can on the tech side of things. But if you have a good director, a good showrunner there, and they want to make sure everything perfect, they will do it until they can get it right and not screw up, losing valuable time on their day. Pardon me for drinking. It's a little dry in here. So yeah, this comes back into some of the weird practices that the studios have been compelling, in a sense, writers, actors, and directors to conform to when it comes to smaller show orders and quicker turnaround times. It also raises a lot of questions when you're having certain shows that are getting tens of millions, and in a few rare cases, a couple $100 million for a very short season, wondering where all that money is going, because it is quite obvious that it's not going to the writers, not going to the actors, and it's not going to the directors. So is it all going into set construction? Is it all being dispersed out to the crew? Seems very, very peculiar. So yeah, that's something to hopefully we'll get some transparency with that in the coming months, if not years, most likely, given how stubborn studios are with what they put on the books. So I will get back into the article for you to see if there's any more key points that I brought up, and then we'll just open it up to you guys in the audience with your questions, and I'll do my best to answer them with the knowledge that I have. Remember, I'm not an actor. I am a writer, and at the same time, I do have limited experience, even though it's been around, a little over 17 years now. So I tend to get some things wrong, and I'm always willing to learn and be corrected if I screw up. So if you're out there and you know something that I missed, throw it in the chat and I will address it. And I also appreciate the update because, again, I don't, when I deal with actors, it's really just rewriting their lines for them, not so much anything else. So moving on, SAG-AFTRA is committed to ensuring our members are able to make a living performing in scripted dramatic live action entertainment. This means ensuring increased compensation when our members work, shoring up the funding of our health, retirement, and pension plans, and providing our members a meaningful share of the economic value created by their performances. As for residuals, the Guild said that while new business models mean that more and more SAG-AFTRA content is monetized around the globe, residual payments are failing to reflect the economic value of this exhibition. SAG-AFTRA is committed to ensuring residual payments both reflect the economic value of our members' contribution and serve as a meaningful source of performer earnings. So that goes back down to inflation, proper balancing, and also creating a stronger baseline with which actors and their representatives can help negotiate the best deals for them. It's kind of fitting that it's the 4th of July, the anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, where 13 colonies were not happy with the people that kind of held power over them, and said that we want to kind of do it better after making several attempts to try and negotiate a more balanced relationship with the crown. So I think it's quite interesting. I understand a lot of people are not pro-union, and I don't hold that against you. It's because I completely understand where you're coming from. There are a number of unions out there, I won't name any names, that don't they claim they have the collective bargaining, the people that they represent in mind, but sometimes their actions don't always line up with that. And sometimes when the money is being forwarded to the union dues, doesn't necessarily go to the right places. Seems all type of structures in that regard have the fault, which is humans. And the other part too is too many people conflating the concept of being a representative with being a leader, and then conflating that with, as a leader, being in control of the people with which you represent. And it's supposed to be the opposite. And hopefully, during the trying times we have undergone over the past few years, more and more people will remember that it's the people who are in charge and not the people we elect, be it in union or politics. But back onto this part here, because we're getting into something quite interesting and quite personal to me. Not so much of a threat, just a worry, a worry with how it could be abused, and that is with respect to AI. The Guild said that artificial intelligence has already proven to be a real and immediate threat to the work of our members and can mimic members' voices, likenesses, and performances. We must get agreement around acceptable uses, bargain projections against misuses, and ensure consent and fair compensation for the use of your work to train AI systems and create new performances. In their public statements and policy work, the companies have not shown a desire to take our members' basic rights to our own voices and likeness seriously. So here's something else that I think actors are right to be concerned about, but they're also should be a little bit more confident in themselves, and that is the AI can only replicate what an actor has already done. And a good actor grows with every performance, and they improve their style. They're not static. They're not in a form of arrested development, just like with a writer and just like with a director. You learn new things as you go. And if you say you are an actor with a pretty substantial career, with a lot of diverse performances, but you're still getting better. Maybe you just haven't won an award at from the Academy of Motion Pictures or anything of that nature yet. The AI would not be able to come up with a way for you to perform and earn an award if that is something that you as an actor really want. It could only draw upon what you've done before and create an approximation within those parameters, within those limitations of how your avatar, if as it were, would perform in a new role. But you as an actor, if you are an actor, if you're a good actor, you don't try to approach a new role the same way, with the same execution that you did in previous roles. That's just the nature of the game. With an actor, you want to do something different. And how would an artificial intelligence, let's say it's your new fresh face actor, really hot, born central Montana, moved out to LA, got a region free dialect, really popular, and all of a sudden you license out your image voice to another studio, and they make an avatar of you to put into a movie, but it's a British period piece, and you've never been recorded with a British dialect. So how is the AI going to do that? And so they'll either have to bring you as an actor in to record a massive amount of dialogue with a British dialect, however you would do that British dialect. Some people, when they do different dialects or do different accents, their voices change. One great example is Hugh Laurie. For those of you who don't know, Hugh Laurie played House on Fox, I believe it was, for many, many years. He is a British-born actor, a British comedian. He's been in Blackadder and a series of other stuff. He's been with Fry and Laurie, was this comedy sketch show that they did in the early 80s. And when he speaks British, he has a bit more of a high-pitched voice, more jolly. But when he speaks American, he has more deep down and raspy voice. So an AI, if they never saw Hugh Laurie do one or the other, would never be able to approximate an honest version of or take of how that performance would be, and you'd lose something from that. So that is something that I think actors need to consider when it comes to licensing out their image and their voice, is that they'll probably find themselves restricted with the roles that they have, and or in addition might find themselves having to come in and basically just voice a cartoon version of themselves as opposed to having a complete 100% new performance, in which case you'll most likely have studios trying to negotiate them as voice actors only, even though they're voice acting to their own avatar, instead of just putting them on an actual set and doing it. And as hyper realistic as some of these AI generations can be, there is always going to be a little bit of that uncanny valley aspect that I think the human eye is going to be able to catch and separate, at least for the next few years. Who knows what will happen in a decade or even another generation? It might be indistinguishable, and I think personally that would be kind of really scary. So moving on, self-taped auditions, meanwhile, are unregulated and out of control, the Guild said. Too many pages, too little time, and unreasonable requirements have made self-taping auditions a massive daily uncompensated burden on the lives of performers. Reasonable rules and limitations and access to other casting formats are sorely needed to ensure fair access to work opportunities and protect performers against exploitation. So self-taping kind of had a big boom during the pandemic. And it's not the best form of auditioning, although it's been used quite often and for a very long time, ever since basically camcorders have been on the market. You'd be able to do a self-tape, send it in, they'd watch it. Casting directors and directors would watch it along with producers, gauge your performance. And from there, they typically would bring you in for an in-person audition just to get a better feel for you. And also the most important aspect when it comes to an audition when coming with actors, and I learned this working for a casting director early on, is that they want to see how you as an actor take direction. They want to see how you process information and do different takes. And that's really hard to do when you are self-taping because you are your director as well. And that makes things difficult because some people that can only do self-tapes or have only ever done self-tapes and never had that relationship with listening to a director and what they want or different type of styles or approaches to the role doesn't allow you to showcase your skills and how valuable you are as a performer that can work with different perspectives. So that is also something I fully support SAG for wanting to kind of better approach on self tapes. So that is pretty much the article. I would read the comments on that, but they're a little dicey. But this is basically what's happening here. This is not so much out of the norm when it comes to SAG, as they have often done. They have often done extensions of that nature. So that is what they're fighting for. At least those the cliff notes of what they're fighting for. We can expect that they'll probably return back to the negotiating table by Friday. I would expect that I imagine in the meantime, both parties are coming together with counters and offers ready to go, and then probably hitting it hard on the weekend because they'll only have a couple of days, really, just this Wednesday, essentially. No, not this Wednesday. Sorry, next Wednesday coming up will be the deadline. So I'm really hoping that they get to that. For now, we're going to check in with you guys. Thanks for listening to me for 24 minutes. Let's see what you have here. We've got we've got a $2 super chat from the Rookie Critic. Hey Jeff, thank you so much for that. I am really looking forward to your short film that you announced, the Heavy Speedster, as it were. I might be butchering that a little bit, but I do remember it and I like the pitch. I'm looking forward to that as well. We also have Angelico Frederick for 10. Thank you so much. 2 arms, man the walls. Thank you, Angelo. And for another 10, thank you so much. Says the movie Looker back in the 70s addressed this issue of AI and studios replacing real people with digital versions of the actors and models. Yes, Looker did that, and Simone or Sim One with Al Pacino did that as well. It was a pretty interesting movie, and yeah, I think it's something to be justifiably concerned about, and I think that it's not going to go away anytime soon, but it should be regulated is probably the wrong word, but it should be respected, I think, and not abused because we already know a few years ago, I think in 2020, Warner Brothers announced that they'd be incorporating an AI system to help them better select what type of movies they will greenlight, which is kind of weird because I don't know exactly how I feel about that. And the reason I say that is because when you're pitching an original IP, like well, or a spec script, as we like to call them, you are doing your own market research. I mean, first you write a story that you think is great, and then once you get a couple of drafts down and you get a better idea of what it is and where it's going, you then start to see, okay, well, what type of market would this appeal to? And you do research, and then you gauge that because you're going to formulate your pitch to a producer when you're trying to sell this script with the fact that it's a marketable idea. You're basically just, you make your premise. I think this will sell. Here's my proof. These are the demographics that appeal to, blah, blah, blah. And you use that to try and convince a human, an executive, who might have no idea what the heck you're talking about in most cases, that this is a smart investment. And in many cases, they then have to corroborate that with research. And even if it's there and it's valid, it still comes down to the taste of that executive if they want to do it or not. So what ends up happening here when you have AI incorporated is you've got two people, you've got a human doing the same thing that the AI is going to be doing. And if you get in sync with the AI, you've got a better chance of having your script greenlit. And that kind of cuts through a lot of the BS that producers, especially ones that are not very in touch with the pulse of the audience, could uh, could help you around. The other problem with the AI part is that there might be certain parameters programmed within the AI for them to ignore, specifically because maybe a studio just doesn't want to do that. For instance, let's say a studio doesn't want to do low concept cerebral science fiction. So low concept is basically an idea that doesn't have broad reach to a lot of people. And very few people in the industry pitch low concept ideas. You find those more on the independent side of things. Like Primer's a low concept time traveling film, just because it deals more with the technicals of time travel. But it's not a huge action thriller or anything of that nature. Not compared to any other film. But regardless, yeah, they might put those parameters in, and so you might end up having something that is really high concept, but maybe it has a couple of parameters that the AI is programmed to ignore or considered to be an immediate pass on, in which case you don't have a means to argue or negotiate with the person across the room to convince them, because you'd be talking to a machine that's just going to rely on data. It might be live data, which also has a disadvantage. But again, if it's programmed with certain stipulations that prevent a hit from being a hit, then yeah, you're it's a loss for the writer, and it's a loss for the studio, and a loss for anyone that would be potentially working on that film or project. So that's something really that needs to be more addressed. We got Davina Duckworth, who says the threat of AI synth thespians is as relevant to actors as it is to screenwriters. Yes. The only caveat, as I mentioned, with regards to acting, is that it's going to be the AI is going to be limited by what has already existed. Same with writing, and even experimenting with a couple of jailbroken AI software. One of the things that we have found is that it still doesn't measure up to the quality of an experienced writer. Currently, that might change, but one of the things an experienced writer has that an AI doesn't is imagination. I have yet to see any computer programmer, any AI architect crack the code that is imagination. Fanto 5692 says, I thought the WGA wanted larger writer rooms. Yes, this one, as I mentioned on my stream that I did with Robert My Burnett over a month ago, I'm not 100% on board with this. I don't like the idea of staffing writers to fit a number quota. I think every show should have the writers that it needs to accomplish. There's been a situation that's been circulating in the industry right now with Taylor Sheridan, who's a guy that kind of does the majority of the writing, or at least advertises that he does the majority of writing for his shows, which would be 1928 or 1923, Yellowstone. He's doing a Lioness, which is premiering, I think, this summer. He's doing the Tax Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. That's also premiering, I think, later this year. So he likes to do a lot of that. And if he has a small staff that helps him break the story, but he writes the scripts, it's really not fair to hire a bunch of other people in there that, whether they're good or bad, if Taylor, as the showrunner, thinks that he can do it better, it's in his best interest to just be the guy doing most of the writing anyways. And why waste the money on a bunch of writers in a room that, one, aren't going to be contributing anything, and two, as a result, aren't going to be getting much experience with regards to that progress. So yeah, I think that needs to be more reconciled. I don't like the idea of that. I mean, J. Michael Straczynski wrote the majority of scripts for his Babylon 5 series. Sliders had a small writer's room when they came back after a slump under Mark Zicree. So I think that's not the best course of action. I think that was a foolish thing to do, but I understand where they're coming from. It's basically it's basically some writers that have some presence in the industry, but not much talent, but they're able to get work, and they have a bunch of friends like them that they want to work with and hire and basically try and guarantee employment, even though some of those people might not have earned it yet. The other aspect too is the current model that's going now with the mini rooms and the shorter episode orders makes it really difficult for an experienced showrunner to be able to shepherd and train staff writers and assistants to becoming showrunners themselves on a future project. So that's a whole mess there. Davina Duckworth suspects that I think the AI will be used to eliminate voice actors first, then screen actors. Well, I don't know how that'll be. That's a good theory, quite possible. I'm not. I'm not sure where it's going to go. It all comes down to the mentality of the studios and how they want to use the AI. And we have a great model to base how they'll use it with the with Industrial Light and Magic and all the special effects companies that came as a result of that company, and how oversaturated and overabused they are, not just in their practices with running a bunch of those studios rampant, trying to composite and render out effects, but also the amount of effects and how much they're using them and how much they're relying on them as opposed to the other stuff. John Sapola asks, are their lines really memorized? For a majority of actors that I've worked with, they've memorized their lines. The only time they don't really get to memorize them is if there's a same scene rewrite, in which case they get the new lines. They don't use cue cards. I have never, or at least in my experience, I've never seen cue cards used on a recorded show. What it ends up being is that the actor takes their sides, which has the updated lines on it. They do their best to commit those to memory. They go on their mark. They say as much as they can. If they forget, they call out line. The script supervisor feeds them the line. And then they reset and do it again until they get it. And that's usually how it is. But most of the best actors like to memorize their lines. When you have something like long single takes, it is imperative that the actors memorize their lines. There are some little tricks that actors do to either help them complete their memorization, give them cues and setups. So some actors would have, back in the 90s and early 2000s, if there's like an office setting, they would have their lines say on the inside of a coffee cup hidden somewhere on their keyboard, or the insert of their computer screen would have little cues or parts of their monologue there for them to basically check and read off of, and editing would use to cut around their eye line if it went off. But in most cases, the best actors try to be off book and memorize their scripts before they, for the day of what they're shooting. Most of them don't always get the entire script, just their scenes, so that makes it a little bit easier for them. And then sometimes they do rehearsals and run-throughs while the sets are being set up to just get a flow and feel for the scene. We got Neil here, who says the fact that Secret Invasion used AI for their opening sequence is quite an escalation for the technology. They did. I mean, I felt their opening sequence was horrible. It looked very obviously AI just because of the angular motions of it, the color palette, color timing. It didn't look hand drawn. It didn't look impressive or interesting because it just looked like a hodgepodge of stuff trying to be postmodern. I would imagine. I wasn't too impressed with it. Whatever Disney paid for that, they got ripped off, in my opinion. Davina Duckworth says, let's put it this way. They don't have to pay AI. Not 100% accurate at this point. They actually have to pay the company that created the AI, because these companies are not actually selling themselves to studios. They're just licensing them to studios. So they're supplementing themselves as the new talent. So, for instance, the Secret Invasion opening sequence was done by a third party that created an AI specifically to generate moving images for opening titles and possibly expanding somewhere else. So Disney paid them probably a sizable amount to generate that opening sequence. Disney technically purchased it, but they actually licensed out the technology to create that thing with which they purchased to use on their show. And maybe there's also a licensing deal with it where every play or maybe there's a residuals for its use with regards to the show. I don't know the details of that. Again, we are in uncharted territory there. But unless the studios build an AI in-house or purchase one that becomes part of an in-house asset, they'll most likely be essentially hiring an AI the same way they would hire an executive, an actor, director, producer, writer, and so forth. But we'll see how long that lasts or if that will change. Quite fascinating thing to consider. We've got, sorry, I'm just catching up with you guys there because again, I was speaking and reading for 20 odd minutes there. We got Bad Take Bojan. Hi, Tina. When creating training videos, I use a tool called Synthesia. It uses AI to generate both real-life audio and video of a chosen presenter, including accents. That is creepy. Now, is it an existing presenter or is it a fully generated one? Because that'd be something to explore. Neil says, also, I apologize if this is immature, but is it wrong that I associate SAG with the Team America's name for them? No. I mean, they did it for two reasons. They're making fun of actors and also making fun of the acronym as well for that. Worked during the time that it was released, wouldn't work now. In fact, funny that we brought up this. Not just the self-taping aspect with SAG and actors going on, but I actually just watched recently on Amazon with my girlfriend a funny pseudo reality show. And I say pseudo reality show because this was a genre that was attempted almost 20 years ago. So if you're not familiar with it, but back in the early 2000s, I believe it was TNT, but correct me if I'm wrong, but TNT did a show called the Joe Schmo Show, and it was making fun of reality TV. And what it was is that they would actually grab one real person, one average Joe, so to speak, and put him on a reality television show with a bunch of actors without his knowledge. And they would essentially be kind of testing this guy's character and manipulating things around them to challenge him to see who he really was. And then if he always ended up being a good person, and as a result, they would reward them with a big cash prize. And recently Amazon did this with a show called Jury Duty. and it's quite funny. It's a little inside baseball with when it comes to acting, but basically, it's a pseudo documentary of a jury as they are listening to a civil suit, and one of the people involved in the facade is James Marsden, from X-Men, from Superman Returns, Westworld, all that stuff. He's there playing himself, and yeah, it's a really short show. I think it's like 8 episodes. Well, 7 real episodes and then 8 to reveal the plot. It's quite humorous. I say give it a shot. I think it's on their Amazon freebie stuff. So I think if you're a Prime member, you don't have to pay anything additional, or if you have like an extensive account, you don't have to pay anything extra. But I would suggest taking that out a little bit. It's a nice change of pace, and it actually does make fun of a little bit of woke culture and how some of the movies that James Marsden did and early on in his career couldn't be made today. They actually acknowledge that and talk about that in a little bits here. And it's run. Oh gosh, I forgot her name. It's Cody something, but she is the daughter of the mother of Danny in the Karate Kid. So the actress who played the mother, her daughter is the showrunner of this project, and I think it was pretty cool. It's not going to last long because people are going to get wise to it, just like they did with the Joe Schmo show. But it was pretty decent. I suggest checking it out. Fanto5692 says the union, employee organization I am a part of is the only way I can get a pay raise. Well, you know what? That's unfortunate, but if they're able to achieve that for you for your work, I'm happy that you're able to get that. But yeah, I know some companies are better than others. But I do hope that you get rewarded for your hard work, Fanto. Everybody should. In a just world, everybody should. Darth Gutierrez, I love that name. You're well spoken, Doctor. Great for you. I'm not. I wish I was. This makes your content even more enjoyable. Well, thank you, Darth. One trick with regards to being a little well spoken is first try and think before you speak. I don't always do that. Second, try to spice up your vocabulary by not repeating the same words over and over. But everyone can always improve on that. You just have to get comfortable with talking and formulating your ideas. And everybody's got great ideas. We also have terrible ideas, but we have great ideas. And the better you have practice articulating them, the more people will be interested in listening. Okay. Neil also says, AI still finds it hard to fully get a voice, and you'll still get a tiny automated tone. Yeah, I've seen that in a couple of the replication ones. The Morgan Freeman one specifically, I remember hearing a lot of like a tinny sound, tiny or tinny. The first one that came out, I think it was like 2017. The first one that came out he was kind of like squeaky a little bit, which is so weird because you'd never expect Morgan Freeman to sound squeaky at points because he's got that deep, like raspy but soothing voice. And then I think it was the one that they did. Was that 2018 where they did the other one where he's like saying "I am an AI"? That's the one that has the tinny voice to it, where it feels like he's talking in like a tin can on a string. But I remember the original, the earlier one. That was so weird. I wonder if I could find that. I wonder if that's still around. So let's catch up a little bit. Sorry about that. Okay, everything just jumped on me, but we got Charlie here. Says Joe Schmo was the only reality show I really liked. You know what? I'm on board with you on that. I dug it too. I thought it was pretty clever. Had Ralph Garman in it, who is having some fun. I've seen him stand up. His stand up, he's pretty cool. So yeah, go back and check some of the old Good Hearted stuff. We got Tom B. Hey, Tom B. Good to see you, sir. How are you? We got I'm trying to see if I can get some of the ladies to do a Conan stream during the day when you're awake, because I want to see some more progress on your castle that you're building by the Timmy's on the water, and two, yes, oh, I see it here. Yep, we need to smash some skulls. Yeah, I want to go do some more skulls, skull smashing, and more stuff. So I really hope we can get that sorted out in the near future, because it's been a little bit too long and a little bit too busy for that. We have the Introspect M says union raises tend to end up cutting the value of maximum performers to pay for the underperformers. Well, it depends on the company that is acquiescing to that. My father, when he was alive, worked for a company that wasn't union, but when raises were done, they made sure to not take that money away from the other departments. It actually came from a profit margin, because it was actually a very profitable company that he worked for. They also had like a profit sharing program as well in addition. So if someone got a raise, that was actually refactored into their budget, as opposed to them cutting it from other areas. They basically just said, well, if this is going to be a raise, this is the stuff we're going into. That's going to affect the profit that we get normally, which will reduce, quote unquote, reduce our profits. But for the company that he worked for, they were getting pretty good profits every year, always more and more and more. My dad really liked that company. And the company really liked him when he passed away. They were very supportive and very helpful to my family during that time. Not many companies like that, unfortunately. I learned that the hard way. I also know that when it comes to like television shows, any long-standing television show, if you take a look at the first season and compare it with, say, the third, fourth, or fifth, if it goes that far, you'll notice there's a lot less extras. There's a lot less location filming. There's a lot less changes in scenery, and the cast. Some of the cast members are maybe only in 2 scenes out of the entire show, and it's mostly focused on the main lead. That is where they actually start cutting the value of the underperformers to pay for the higher people. Yeah, the above the line talent, so to speak. Charlie says, I loved the second season when one of the contestants figured it out. Oh, I think I remember that. Yeah. And they had to hire them, right? Okay. Tomby says server is up and running now, fixed and updated. Oh, cool. That's good. He says I had to shut down some executable files running in the back group before I could update both server files and mods. Oh, for Angelo. Okay, because Angelo asked what was going on. Yeah. Oh, that's good to know. Yeah, server maintenance is I don't know how to do that stuff. I want to learn one day, but for now, just I've still got on my docket of things to learn. Blender is the big one. I want to get really good at that so I can make some cool animatics for stuff when I pitch. I hate. I mean, I have fun doing it, but I hate cutting other scenes from other films or television shows into a trailer for something that I'm working on originally. I like to get a bit more visuals on that, and I like designing some of the stuff. If you've been watching my channel, you can even go back. I do a Script Doctor Creates, where a colleague of mine drew like a rough sketch of a spaceship, a cargo towing spaceship, and I kind of made a 3D model of it. I sent it off to him. He loved it. He did some modifications himself, sent it back to me, and he hasn't asked me to do any updates on it yet, but I think he's going to, because we talked on Canada Day about that on Saturday. So maybe I'll jump online later this week or next week if he asks, and we'll show you the update, and we'll see if we can get some finer details and some cool things going on there. The rookie critic, hey Jeff, says the Fat Speedster trailer dropping in 3 hours. Really? Okay. You know what? That's good. Let me see. Can I can. Okay. So I've just added you as a mod, Jeff, because well, one, you're awesome, and two, put your link in the chat so that people can go see it. Because I want to check that out because I really like the concept. I think it's great. And and for those wondering, I have read the Rookie Critic's work before for other project, which I really enjoyed. He's got a great passion and fervor into this, and I really can't wait to see what he brings with the Fat Speedster. We have Terry, Not a Tiger, says, Script, are you familiar with the Metal Gear Solid franchise? It's my favorite heavily flawed piece of entertainment. Metal Gear Solid. Is that with the Solid Snake character? Because sometimes I get anything metal and metal confused. I got Twisted Metal and I think Gears of War mixed up a lot. I'm so I'm so messed up on that part. But if it's the Solid Snake games, I remember playing a couple of those at a friend's house. I like the fact that it's a beautiful nod to Escape from New York and Snake Plissken. I think that's always fun. But there's a lot going on with that. So I'm not 100% familiar. I'm not a very affluent gamer. A lot of my friends, especially with like the Mortal Kombat and the Street Fighter games, always got upset with me because if I won a match, I didn't care. And if I lost a match, I didn't care. Because I'm just there to have fun. So that's what I'm going with it on that. But if that is the franchise, I think that's a pretty cool franchise. I've seen some pretty cool stuff out of that. Jeff again for 2. Thank you, sir. Isn't the WGA the World Canadian Bureau? No. That would be something. No, the WGA is its own thing. Writers Guild of America. A lot of Canadians are members of that, especially if they've been able to move and reside in Canada, which is reside in the USA, which is something I'm planning on doing. Hopefully within the next 12 months. Now that there's no restrictions on foreign nationals entering the United States, I really want to get that done and done the right way because I love the United States just as much as I love my own country. I think we're two peas in the same pods with a little bit of differences, but more in common than not. And I think I think we can get. I think with time we can get on track to having a nice, fun and trustworthy symbiotic relationship that we had prior to the turn of the century. I think that's beneficial to both our countries, and I think that's why it's very important that we have a very friendly and trustworthy relationship. Okay, sorry guys. I'm reading a little bit of these before I go jump them on because I don't want to screw up your names or what you say too poorly. So, EK Trans says automation will drastically reduce union members hiring by 2040. Yes, there's another thing to think about: the abuse of automation in jobs where automation is not necessarily required. I remember reading in my history books when automation was first done, the angle for it was that it's to do the most dangerous of work, so that the employees wouldn't, be harmed. And the principal idea is that the employees that would originally be doing the dangerous work would now be responsible for maintaining the machines that, quote unquote, replace them. And unfortunately, it didn't pan out like that for a number of companies. And I feel very sorry for those men that did the hard jobs that lost them, and women, of course, because it's we need to be a good balance between an information economy and a manufacturing economy, and a service economy. Those three need to be better balanced, and done so without with concept of responsibility and value. We got Tree Rock Creations here. Says Script Doctor Script, referencing the WDW Pro stream that ended an hour ago. Disney high management interferes with creative and marketing process, then blames creative and marketing process for failure. Yeah, that's sometimes that is how it is. Sometimes you'll have a very important person at a studio who brings in marketing team to help shape what they want to do with an intellectual property. And from there, the creatives have to try and make it work. And if they succeed, everybody's happy. And if they fail, the blame game starts. And it usually goes towards the talent. Talent's usually the first one to go because talent is the most changeable one. Um, there's a story that I'm reminded of uh, that came out when I was doing research. When I got a little subcontracting job for a company that was working with Warner Brothers at the time, and I got access to a lot of cool information. I got a lot of free comic books, digital comic books, unfortunately, but a lot of free comic books, thousands of them. But I also managed to get read some old notes because I wanted to find out what happened to the Tim Burton Batman 3 that they were originally going to do prior to the debut of Batman Returns, because I was in the negotiations at that time. And I learned that when making Batman Returns, the production was given a whole bunch of stuff that marketing had developed that they had to incorporate into the movie. These were like not necessarily costumes, but they were kind of like bat gadgets and certain sets and certain set pieces and things of that nature. And apparently that annoyed Tim Burton, according to the records there. And the screenwriter, whose name has escaped me at the moment, had to work that all in. And because of the Batman Returns did quite well financially, but it had a very critical negative critical reception with regards to parents and family restaurants. And that is how Tim Burton was pushed out of Batman 3 and Joel Schumacher was brought in. And apparently, Joel Schumacher had the same thing where marketing had come to them with certain designs and concepts that they wanted to do in the script, and that had to be injected into it. And that, my understanding, as far as I can tell, is that in the 90s, that's kind of when it all started, when marketing got more involved in the creative process and less involved in being creative to market something. And when I started to pitch and work and get to the levels of, right up to the point of doing a sale or getting a production or getting a development deal, marketing would look at the spec script and basically say, we've never seen anything like this before, or the stuff we have seen that's like this doesn't sell well. We don't know how to market it. And of course, my response, an arrogant response, probably caused some enemies, is usually when I would say, well, if you don't know how to sell something, why are you here? I mean, like, just a plain, honest answer. Why are you here? Why are you working for a marketing company if you don't know how to sell anything? When I was in high school and we had social sciences and marketing classes, one of the things that my teacher would say is that you have to be so good at marketing you could sell something useless to anyone. Luckily, it was an OAC class or like a grade 12, grade 13 high school class, and so she would get a little blue. Sometimes she'd say, if you could sell a lifetime supply of condoms to lesbians, you're doing your job right as a marketer. And that was kind of like the bluest thing she'd ever say. So luckily, she never got fired for that. Today, she probably would have. But that's basically what it was, is that if you're going to be in sales, or you're going to be in marketing, and you're going to be developing concepts and press packages and commercials and whatnot, you got to know what you're selling, and you got to know how to sell it to the broadest audience possible. And marketing departments haven't been like that for a very long time. And in fact, I used to have a very good friend that got into marketing. And when I was doing copy for another studio, and his account company came in to try and market it, and they literally said they didn't know how to do it, I kind of made fun of him and his entire company. And in doing so, they lost the contract. And he has not talked to me since. But if he remembered that class, we were in the same class. If he remembered it and did what he did, he would have come up with a great pitch and a great marketing campaign that would have worked. Let's see here. Kitty Bear's here. How you doing, Kitty Bear? Script Doctor, what is your favorite movie or series with a rooster in it and why? I'm talking about Male Chicken, not something else, to be clear. Can't really think of anything that has a rooster in it aside from Foghorn Leghorn. And those are the Merry Melodies and Looney Tunes shorts. So that's probably the best that we can do. Okay, here we go. So there it is from the Rookie Critic. The Fat Speedsters dropping here in under 3 hours. This show will be ending pretty soon. I'm just going to do a quick update on the WGA stuff. So that's the link. Please go check that out. Support the Rookie Critic. Support Jeff. I want to see what he does. I want to see how he gets better, and just I want you to make it. I think your passion is much needed, and your perspective can help. And yeah, I like supporting anyone that wants to add to entertainment and culture. I may not always agree with the perspectives, but I always agree with the idea that, hey, share your story, share your voice. You never know, you might resonate with a lot of people. Zephyr Shan says David Hayter's also a script doctor in Hollywood. Yes, I've heard his name come around a few times. I have not had the chance to meet him. There just hasn't been there yet. David Mamet is also a script doctor of sorts. He's also a fantastic playwright and writer. He is a great person. If you're into writing, he's a great person to study because he really understands character motivation and the linking of actions and dialogue to the motivation and behavior of a character. I think that's why some of his dialogue is some of the punchiest out there. He knows how to to really tap into what a character needs and wants and follow it through. Okay. Davina Duckworth says, I worked with marketing people. A lot of them simply follow a template and roll out the same kind of marketing plans for everything with minimal work or imagination. Yes. My gosh. Disney became very transparent with their Star Wars trailers. That Force Awakens format trailer that they have with the small melody of the theme playing at the very end. It was so easily copied that fans were able to reformat that trailer model to almost anything. They did the original trilogy, they did the prequel trilogy, they did other movies. I think they did one for like Starship Troopers and Batman, and oddly enough, Born on the 4th of July. I think I saw one like that, the Tom Cruise film. Yeah, they do have some templates. I really miss the story, the days of this that if I heard back in the day of stories where marketing would be like, this is a fantastic movie, we can do all these creative things with it, we can cut new commercials, heck, we will pay to shoot a scene that's not going to be in the movie, but it's going to help it market the movie. We just don't get that anymore. Nobody wants to put in the effort, and they just want to take all the money. Let's see here. Before I move on, I just want to see what we got. Davina Duckworth says Foghorn Leghorn was directly inspired by the character of Senator Claghorn, a blustery Southern politician played by Kenny Delmer on Fred Allen's popular 1940s radio show. I can believe that. I can absolutely believe that. Then we got Neil says, honestly, the best marketing for a movie in recent memory is Deadpool 1, namely with Deadpool taking advantage of how crazy the character is. Oh, yeah, great angle for marketing on that. Character being a fourth wall break always helps as well. Better to talk to the audience. I will say Ryan Reynolds does know how to market. He does a lot of stuff on his own. The stuff he did for Detective Pikachu was phenomenal, and it worked out really well. We got Dwayne Oldson. Thank you so much for 1812. Oh, man. It says, just a shout out to the Crown's most effective payback. Yes. No. Thank you so much for that, Dwayne. Greatly appreciated. All right. So let's go into this next part here. Force majeure. Force majeure. So, for those of you who don't know, force majeure is a stipulation that's put in many contracts, and it pertains to if there's a delay in production up to a certain number of days, the studio has the option to invoke force majeure and cancel the project without spending any additional monies. This time period is very flexible. It's not always standard, but there are basics that they usually follow. There's 60 days, 90 days, 120 days. It is pretty much up. There are some that are like a couple of weeks, but I haven't personally encountered those yet. But I'm sure that they're out there. I've heard stories that people got force majeure early on in this current WGA strike. But yes, this is an option that studios don't have to invoke, but they can. And this is just an older article from May 19th from the Hollywood Reporter. And so to cover the official basis is that if a studio feels like they're not going to be able to take advantage of a window, getting a text, sorry. If they're not going to be able to take advantage of a certain window, then they will then they'll invoke force majeure. However, if they really like the project and they want to hold on to it, they don't have to. So that's just the kind of basic stuff going on there. So let's go through a little bit of this, see what the Hollywood Reporter, what Ashley Collins has researched for this to share with us here today. Excuse me. Before I do, I'm going to take some water because my throat and stomach is getting dry. Excuse me. Before I do, we got Angelo Frederick for 5. Thank you, Angelo. It says, see you later, script. Have a hot dog and Coke on me. Happy 4th. Well, thank you so much. I think I will. A lot of us Canucks really respect the United States, even though some of our culture suggests otherwise. But thank you so much for that, Angelo. Happy 4th of July. Let's get into this Hollywood Reporter article and learn some stuff about force majeure. When it comes to work stoppages in Hollywood, what exactly is an act of God? It's a question that sent studios scrambling amid COVID-19 pandemic, but even now there's not much clarity around so-called force majeure events. Shortly after the WGA strike went into effect, writers' reps began receiving calls and emails notifying them of deals being suspended. The vast majority of them don't reference force majeure, and according to the attorneys with whom the Hollywood Reporter spoke on background, there's a clear reason. The WGA's collective bargaining agreement says a strike itself is justification. Under Article 7 of the WGA Minimum Basic Agreement, the writer's employment... Oh my God, that is... Can I pause that? That's really distracting. Sorry about that. That just give epilepsy for us here. Oh my gosh, can I... There we go. Huh. I don't want anyone having a seizure while I read this, so I apologize for that. Oh, where was I? Okay. Excuse me. Under Article 7 of the WGA Minimum Basic Agreement, the writers' employment agreements at struck companies shall be deemed automatically suspended, both as to service and compensation, while such strike is in effect. Hollywood's top attorneys, working with the writers and hyphenates, have been putting in overtime trying to help clients understand a situation that has seemingly endless variables. Clients want to know, can I be suspended? Can I be terminated? Generally speaking, yes, you can, is the answer, says one talent lawyer. Most of the studio's standard terms and conditions give the studios the right automatically to suspend and to terminate without any waiting period. That's by and large the rule. Another talent lawyer notes that there's been a wide variation in how companies are managing their talent relationships. Some studios are at least getting on the phone to say, here's what we're thinking, while others are dropping letters in the mail or email, and that doesn't always land the best. Of course, the WGA's minimum basic agreement is exactly what it says it is, a minimum. Studio boilerplates may vary, and some talent may have negotiated protections, but attorneys say the latter is rare. Since the 2007 strike, studios have made these suspensions and termination provisions basically non-negotiable, and the only ones that tend to get protections that aren't in the pre-negotiated version of their standard terms are the 800-pound gorillas, says another top talent lawyer. So that goes down into what our wonderful friend Robert Meyer Burnett says, which is it's not show friends, it's show business, and you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. And if you're a big player in Hollywood, you can negotiate quite an advantageous contract. And there's a number of them out there doing that. There's generally consensus that for directors, producers, and actors, a WGA strike is a force majeure event. But when it comes to writers, it's muddier. Talent reps and even Hollywood labor lawyers are split as to whether a strike by your own union invokes force majeure. When writers were the ones who called the writer strike, the argument goes, how could they call this an event out of their control? Studios, on the other hand, could potentially declare a force majeure with regard to writers because of the writers' strike, but they may not want to, as it could trigger additional rights and obligations that they don't currently need to worry about with WGA members. One exception being Universal, which attorneys say uses language that makes clear your own guild strike isn't a force majeure event. Much of the discussion of force majeure in the WGA's MBA refers writers back to their employment agreements. These could contain additional protections like selectivity clauses, which effectively prevent companies from playing favorites by stating that a studio can't suspend or terminate the person because of a force majeure event unless they do the same to everyone who's similarly situated. According to one lawyer, some of those clauses go as far as to name specific people and certain studios, like Amazon and HBO, are more likely to agree to them than others. Adds another, each studio has a different contract, and sometimes even at the same studio, there are different force majeure provisions. So this goes back to what I was mentioning earlier, how you can negotiate certain things. Zephyr Chan, what's an MBA? A minimum basic agreement. That's for the WGA's minimum basic agreement. They were a WGA MBA. So good question, though. Thank you, Zephyr. In the WGA's agreement with studios, force majeure isn't addressed in Article 26, or is addressed in Article 26. I'm sorry, I misspoke there. It mandates that the time during which a writer is suspended under force majeure doesn't count towards their employment term, and a writer can send a studio a termination notice after 5 weeks of suspension, which would give the studio a week to reinstate them, or the writer could potentially walk away and make a deal elsewhere after the strike. When asked if the AMPTP has an official position on whether Article 26 has been triggered, a rep said to refer to Article 7. Meanwhile, Article 7 states, in part, nothing herein contained shall be construed to deprive the company of its right to terminate the employment contract at any time after such member shall strike or otherwise fail or refuse to perform services. There's widespread speculation that studios will take advantage of this and use the strike to cut projects and talent from their budgets. But whether studios will do that anytime soon remains to be seen. If you have the right to terminate at any point until the strike is over, why would you do it now? Speculates a talent lawyer. Who expects, that's a weird grammar there, speculates a talent lawyer who expects that studio will likely take their time before making those calls. On the other hand, if they wanted to make a bold statement against the guild writers as a tool of battle, they might do it as an FU. So that is the basic standards when it comes to force majeure. It is not always a default. It is an option that can be taken. And within the articles of the minimum basic agreement at the WGA, it's something that studios can enact if it is part of the contract terms. So what we've already kind of been seeing, if you've been following the trades, if you've been following a bunch of the channels on YouTube that cover this sort of thing, such as like Midnight's Edge, Valiant Renegade, WW Pro, and so forth, so Bounding in Comics. You've noticed that some shows have been canceled with no chance of renewal. Some have been canceled and removed from their streaming services. Disney doing a number of shows just recently. And this isn't always essentially force majeure to some degree, but there are arguments to say that that the studios are kind of taking advantage of certain things. So one thing that recently happened that someone asked me about on another live stream was the cancellation of Star Trek Prodigy, which it's my understanding from Star Trek fans that it's one of the better shows, but it's more targeted to a children's show of that. And that has been canceled, and I believe is being removed from Paramount Plus and possibly relicensed to another streamer in order for Paramount to make some additional cash on that. I don't know if this is a sign with regards to what's going on with Alex Kurtzman's contract. I know he has one with CBS, and then he has another one with regards to his control over Star Trek. I think this show is kind of sacrificed so he could do the two that he really wants to, which, and this is me just speculating, which is obviously the Section 31 show, and the other one which he pitched, which was Star Trek Starfleet Academy, which is a spinoff of Star Trek Discovery. So that is interesting. That could be why Prodigy was done. I believe the contract, and I really wish I could get my hands on that contract. I believe the contract stipulates that he can only have 5 Star Trek shows in production at technically at the same time. That is the limit. And with Prodigy being canceled and Picard having ended and Discovery ending this year, that gives him 3 spots to fill those 2 shows, and there might be a third. We don't know what it is, so we'll have to wait and see. But that might be the case. A computer animated show is relatively time consuming. In fact, I believe it took them 2 years to distribute their entire first season for whatever reason. And I don't know if Lower Decks is going on anywhere. We got Willie the Monkey King, who's here, says, "Hey, Script." Well, hey, Willie, good to see you here. We got Tom Connors in the chat. Says, Strange New World's getting 50 episodes. Could be. I wouldn't be surprised. That would be that'd be a 5-season show. Overall, they've each season is 10 episodes, and my gosh, Strange New Worlds is grueling. If you are not a Patreon subscriber, you should be, because I did post a number of reviews with regards to Star Trek, and specifically Star Trek Strange New Worlds. You can see them on the base tier, and the base tier has a 7-day free trial, so you can sign up, not have to pay anything, read the catalog of articles I have posted, and if that's something that you like, you can sign up, commit, which I'd be very happy for. And if not, no harm, no foul. I'm glad you're able to enjoy the content that I had, but I did write over 12 pages on their season 2 premiere, and around 11 pages on their season episode 2 follow-up, which was Ad Astra, which is a terrible courtroom show. The Introspect M says, what happened to 24 episode seasons? Some studios didn't like it. They didn't want to spend that much. Some writers said that they've only excuse me. Some writers have said that they've only got it in them to do a smaller episode of high quality. I think it's weird. Personally, I just think it's weird. I want to go back to the 24, 26 episode format. I think it helps filter out the good writers from the bad. Sometimes bad writers only have a good idea that doesn't have any legs, so they can do well on a miniseries, which I'm all for. I'm fine for. But the last thing you want, but if you have a bad writer that's a great concept but doesn't know how to give it legs, good writers will find their way in and turn that show into something that a lot of people will want. Okay. Let's see. CB Spock says, so when is JJ going to announce a new Star Trek 4? Check in with Midnight's Edge to find out when that is. They're the ones keeping an eye on it right now. So that's something to consider there. Yes. There's lots of rumors going around with regards to what's going to happen with Star Trek, with CBS, and so forth. I am looking forward to seeing what happens if the strike persists till the end of this month, which I suspect it will on the WGA side of things. We could see some significant changes with a lot of the shows in there. I'm actually quite curious to see if Quantum Leap, that horrible sequel series, survives, because it was it was rumored canceled, and then I heard from one of the people who worked on the show it was canceled, and then a couple weeks later, NBC, I guess, changed their mind and said that they're going to renew it. I think they did because they canceled a whole bunch of other shows, and given the money that they spent on building the sets for Quantum Leap, they probably couldn't cut it without losing additional money on that. So we'll have to wait and see. That one is interesting. Same thing with night. Like, there's a lot of NBC shows that are just bad, and NBC's been bad for a while. So we'll see what survives and what doesn't. But having said that, I've gone for an hour and 20 odd minutes, and I want to say thank you to everyone for listening in. I greatly appreciate your questions. I greatly appreciate your super chat donations. Please go and check out the Rookie Critics trailer, which will be dropping in a couple of hours. I am just pulling up the link here as soon as I can scroll up to get it, because it did not want to star as the way I wanted to. Please go check that out in a couple of hours. Let your friends know. Show your support. And thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'm just going to put the link again here. Hopefully that works. There we go. Again, thanks so much for hanging out with me tonight, this morning and this afternoon. I will probably be seeing you tonight if Tom's got a 4th of July Midnight's Edge show. I'll be happy to head on over there and discuss more things. But thanks so much. I'm going to try and do this a little more often for you all around this time frame. I don't know when or what days, but just feel free to follow me on Twitter at ScriptDoctorPhD to see when I'll be going live. And if you can think of other show topics or ideas that you want me to address, just leave them in the comments, and I'll be happy to read them and do my best to appear for that. So thank you again, everybody. To my American friends and family, have a wonderful 4th of July Independence Day. And never forget, when it comes to great stories, it all starts with the script.